Hello, hello. Really excited about this podcast episode. I think that whenever we can really understand why we're getting in our own way at this level, when we can take this kind of macro view and then bring it into our own personal control and our own personal responsibility, it can be very powerful. And so the reason I thought about this is for my life for a really long time. And quite frankly, I can still get into these patterns. And with the clients that I work with, as we're moving into this new level of freedom around food and body and all the good stuff, it's like we keep getting stuck. So if you have not taken my 5-day challenge yet, and 2 of the 5 days of this 5-day free challenge are all about how we get in our own way and why we get in our own way. We don't want to be getting in our own way. How many times I've heard clients go, Audrey, if I could just not eat or not overeat, but not eat unless I'm physically hungry. If I could just figure out how to just not overeat, right? It just be that simple. Why can't I do this thing? Why can't I stop getting in my own way? I know I want to move my body, it makes me feel better as an example, but then poof, I don't know why, but there I am stuck again over and over again, and I can't get out of my own way. And so I'm just going to put a ticker here. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see this, but if you're checking this out on YouTube, you will see at the very bottom, it will say hellobodyfreedom.com/5-day path. That's the number 5 dash day dash path. And so if you go to this link, you will end up being able to register for my free 5-day challenge, which we go into extensive detail about how we self sabotage. But today, we're going to have a slightly different conversation because I want to really give this some context and I want to give this some parameters for you so you can really leave here and go, okay, I see this. I see how this works. I see how I keep getting in my way. And now I am learning how to get out of my way. All right. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's look at some real basic tenets. So will be a way for us to be able to start to untangle and see more clearly so that we can stop. I don't hate to use the word making excuses, but so we can really see clearly just how we are getting in our own way and just how easy it is to get out of our own way. So the very first concept that we want to talk about and we want to go through is that this idea of what we have control over and what we don't have control over. And we want to get very granular and clear here about what we have control over and what we do not have control over, right? So there's things that we actually have control over. And this is very powerful because when we understand what these things are, we can actually use this to our benefit to make these changes happen. But what mostly, especially if we're getting stuck, what's happening is that there are other things that we have no control over. And what we do is we focus our energy and attention on all of these other things that are completely out of our control. And then we wonder why we keep getting stuck. We wonder why we keep falling off the wagon. We wonder why we throw up our hands and say, F it, I might as well just eat the food anyways. We wonder why we sit on the couch instead of going to move my body. I know I'm using some basic examples here. We wonder why we can't seem to get past an overeating pattern. Okay. So let's get into these pieces that are outside of your control so that we can really understand what those are. And then we'll work into what's inside of our control. And once we understand that, then this is where the power is. Okay. All right. This is one of the things I absolutely love about 12 steps. So if anybody's a 12 stepper for anything, maybe you've struggled with addiction or you have family members who have struggled with addiction, grateful member of Al-Anon for sure. It is a beautiful concept, and this is the first place that I heard it was in 12 Steps, and since then, you can hear, like, a bunch in psychology, pop psychology talk, but I like the way the 12 steppers talk about it. They say that imagine that you have a hula hoop around your body, right? And here's your hula hoop, and it's around you, right? And what's inside of that hula hoop is actually what you have control over, but everything outside of that hula hoop, guess what? You don't have control over whatever is outside of that hula hoop. Okay, so let's talk about what that would be. So that would be very basically, this is persons, places, and things. We'll talk about that. And I think that people is one of the very first things that we want to talk about, especially if we're on a weight loss journey, especially if we're on a health and healing journey. So I want to acknowledge that the family unit and the family dynamic, my partner is a social worker. He is a master's degree licensed therapist trained in understanding how family dynamics and social dynamics and community dynamics and all of these dynamics play a part in our life for sure. And I think family dynamics can be one of the harder thing. But here's the thing. We don't get to control if our husband comes home with a giant thing of pizza. We don't get to control if, like for me, I have an 18 and a 20-year-old young adults living in my house over the summer, and I don't get to control the cookies and the cake and the chips and all the stuff that they like to put all over the house, right? It's not their fault if I shove that food in my mouth, right? It's okay. I might, and this is where I might, I definitely thought this before. Maybe you can relate. But as soon as I'm in the place of that just wasn't there. If he just wouldn't bring that into the house, if he could just learn how to eat healthy the way that I want to eat healthy, like when I am going down that spiral, I am literally relinquishing my power of all the power that I have to something outside of myself that I actually have no control over. Okay. I want you to take a deep breath with me and just let that land. Okay. It is not your husband's fault. You can't find these healthy habits. It's not your kid's fault. It's not your boss's fault. It's not the neighborhood's fault. It's not the government's fault. It's nobody's fault, right? Those are all outside of your hula hoop. And so when we can understand this, that those people, like, it's just, unless they held you down and forced you, you're not allowed to exercise, unless they hold you down, shove the cake in your mouth, that's a whole different story. I'm trying to make a joke. I'm trying to keep this light. But in this regard, we need to understand that we don't get to control. We don't have control. The only thing we get is to control this right here. Now, we're going to get into what we can control in a second. But before we go there, I also want to talk about how we often get lost in our past. We make our past, oh, if I just would have done this, I wouldn't be here. All of these regrets. We end up beating ourselves up, all of this stuff. We also can't control our past, right? We cannot control our past. Our past has already happened. And when we live chronically in the past, wishing it was different, trying to make changes in our head, we're obsessing and spending all of this mental and emotional energy on something that no longer exists, that we cannot change, right? The true existence of that hula hoop is like the present moment is what you can change. And that has a direct impact on the future. What you do now affects what you're going to do then. Okay. And so, whenever we can understand that we can't control our past, we can't control people, we can't control the government, we can't control politics. And I was thinking about that actually. I'm like, you could, right? You could go run for office. That's a great way to be an active participant. But unless you're going to go run for office, you don't get to control it, except for with your vote, which is a great idea. Like everybody should vote. Woo! But other than that, this is not a podcast about politics, even like a little bit. The point I'm making is that we make all of these other things so relevant in our lives and a force that is keeping us stuck when in actuality, we need to really check ourselves to make sure we're trying to stay in our own hula hoop in that regard. Okay. And again, I just want to circle this back to the concept of understanding the truth of family dynamics, that they are hard, that it is intense. When you're trying to break out of an old habit pattern and behavior and you are inside of a family dynamic, what that does when you make that change is it disrupts the whole family system. It makes everybody that's really used to you doing what you always do, which is baking the cookies and having a tub of ice cream in the fridge all the time, or whatever it might be, whatever the behavior is that you decide to stop doing, it makes everybody else like, blah, 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 which does, I want to just honor the truth of how that can feel like a challenge. But at the end of the day, when we are talking about why it's such a struggle to get out of your own way, it's what is inside of your hula hoop that matters more than anything. Okay. And so let's now finally talk about what we can control. Okay. What can we control? What we have control over inside of this hula hoop of ours is we have control over our conscious thoughts. We have the ability and capacity to catch our thoughts and to change them. And this is very important. We'll talk about this in a second, why this is so important. Okay. We also have the ability to work with what's going on with our feelings and emotions and sensations. All right. Now, thoughts and feelings are very connected, and we'll explain that in a second. And those why it's so really powerful and important. Like when you first come into Hello Body Freedom, inside of Hello Body Freedom, the very first thing we do is we take you through our 8-week foundational course. All right. This 8-week foundational course starts with some basic tenets of getting you into right relationship with food, getting you out of diet culture, getting you taking action. But the truth of the matter is what most of us do whenever we're trying to have behavior changes, we go straight for the action. We go, I'm going to get rid of the chips and I'm going to get rid of the ice cream. I'm going to set my alarm and I'm going to go take the action of buying some new sneakers and a sports bra so that way I'm going to join the gym. Like all of these are actions and there's nothing wrong with that. But the truth is, if the way that we're talking about ourselves and what we're feeling and experiencing are taking over, and we are not learning how to work with that in a way that we actually have control over, then all of that action that we're trying to take is just like, it's just going to, it's not going to work. Okay. This is one of the reasons why we fall off the planet all the time, why we fall off the wagon, whatever you want to call it. And so, super important that we understand falling off of the wagon because of behaviors, we really have to go into what we're thinking and what we're feeling and start to understand at that level and work at that level. And so I'm just going to take it back to and whenever you come into Hello Body Freedom, this 8-week foundational course. Yes, we want you into action because quite frankly, when you come in, you're really excited, you're motivated, you're ready to rock this party, right? And the reason you're motivated and you're ready to rock this party is because you were having awesome thoughts and you were having awesome feelings. And what does that lead to? Wanting to take action, right? But immediately after that first module, we get into the module 2, module 3, module 4, which are all about wait a second, we have got to start working with what's going on with our self talk, with the sentences that are running through our head. And we have to start working with what's going on with our emotional sensation body. Because if we don't get those two things handled, then the action part is a lot harder. And remember, these are the things we do have control over. We absolutely have control over. These are the things inside of our hula hoop. Now, I'm not saying these things are easy. I'm not saying that these things don't take work. That's why people come into Hello Body Freedom and they spend a good chunk of time with us working through all of this. But it is doable. You most certainly can. And the truth is that if you do want to get out of your own way, this actually is the path out of that. Okay. So super exciting. Let's go ahead and dive into thoughts and feelings. And let's talk about this a little bit more because again, these actions that we have, they are driven by our thoughts and feelings. And let's break that down specifically here because anything that you do or don't do, if you decide to sit on the couch, if you decide to get up and go for a jog, if you decide to say no to that ice cream, if you decide to eat the ice cream, whatever the thing is, does not matter. And of course, I'm using conversation about Hello Body Freedom. All of the actions or inactions you take or don't take are because you feel a thing before you do the action. Every single time. Feelings drive action or inaction, what you're experiencing in the body, right? So if you haven't taken the 5-day challenge yet, then I definitely recommend hop in there, hellobodyfreedom.com/5-day path. And in day 2 and day 3, we go very deep into the feeling part, the emotion part. And whenever we can understand that, then we can start working with this. Now, I want to bring up an important point. This is very psychology 101. If you have a degree in psychology, you are going to learn that your thoughts create your feelings, create your actions. It's called the think, feel, do cycle. And while it is 100% true, and we're going to spend some time right now breaking that down, it is not the full truth. And this is where the pioneers in trauma research over the last couple of decades I'm thinking of Bessel van der Kolk. I'm thinking of Peter Levine. There's more out there, but true pioneers looking at all of these people that just keep getting stuck, right? It's not just about, oh, I think a thought, so I feel a feeling. And then I feel a feeling, and then I do this action that I wish that I didn't do, right? It's not just that. So, what we know about the trauma response, what we know about an overwhelmed nervous system, a nervous system that is in fight, flight, or freeze, that can happen at a body level, an unconscious body level without a thought that even has to happen. And this is why I started this conversation with the actions that we take are always driven by what's going on in the body, the sensations, the emotions. This is what drives us no matter what. Now, we're going to talk top down. So I'm thinking a thought. And as I think this thought, I have this icky feeling all in my body. And then I go do this icky action that's totally not helping me. That is definitely one loop. Okay. The other loop is I don't even know. You don't even have a thought about it. This is what I mean when I'm talking about when this happens at the body level. There's not even a thought about it. So it's coming from an embodied situation that don't even feel like you have control over. A great example is just PTSD out of nowhere. You didn't mean to have like for your whole body to go into a spasm or having like massive like panic attack or anxiety, something that just hits you, but it just like, popped up out of nowhere, right? There's some trigger of unprocessed trauma in the body that keeps like triggering that I have one client right now that I'm working with where she has major grief and she has a strong, like body level trauma of just grief, crying at the drop of a hat over and over again, multiple times a day. And it's a loop and it's a body loop. So that is what's happening in the body. But here's what I want you to hear. This is super important. If you are starting at the body level where it just happens and you're feeling all of this intensity, eventually, maybe not right away, but inside of the first few seconds up to minutes or something, you are very likely going to have thoughts about it. And the thoughts that you have about what's going on in your body often just perpetuate what's going on in the body, right? You wake up on the wrong side of the bed, something doesn't feel right. And then what are the thoughts that you have about that? It's going to be the shittiest day ever. I just know it. Ugh, God, I hate my job. I hate that. That's not going to help, right? So you're having these shitty thoughts that are just perpetuating these shitty feelings. Okay. So I just want to really clarify here. It does not matter whether you're thinking the thoughts and then feeling the feelings. So we have the shitty thoughts, the shitty feelings, and then the shitty behavior. Or if it just comes straight from the body, you're having, oh, my body's like doing what it's doing. And then you're having thoughts about what's happening to the emotions or sensations because both directions lead to actions. Both of them create the emotion sensation body that leads to you taking the action that does not feel good. Okay. Now that we have an understanding here, let's go ahead and dive into how the heck do we work with this? What do we do to start to untangle this? All right. So, the very first piece I want to make sure that we understand here is that I believe that the easiest place to start is with your thoughts. If you are an emotional eater, stress eater, overeater, mindless eater, sad eater, happy eater, bored eater, like name all the ways you use food outside of physical hunger. Okay. If you are doing that now and you are an adult, you have very likely had that behavior for a very long time. You likely had a trauma response of something. Either you didn't get the love you needed, the safety you needed, the belonging you needed, something you didn't get. And what happened is it was a nervous system overwhelm. It was a stress response. And you just learned. You learned one way or the other that when I eat something, it makes me feel better. And indeed, eating does make us feel better, right? We get a dopamine hit, we get serotonin hits, our belly feels full. It's yummy. Who doesn't like sugar? Come on, right? So, of course, your body learns, ooh, seek pleasure, avoid pain. Next time I feel that painful situation, I'm going to eat. And so now we have this really strong habit loop going on in the back of our head. Okay. And wow, that doesn't feel good. And so, whenever we can understand this, whenever we can fully get that, this loop that we have with food has been here for a long time, we're not going to shame it. But what we want to understand is that what's going on today, right now, is likely caused from something a whole long time ago. And that habit loop is really strong, which is why when we are emotional eaters, stress eaters, sad eaters, bored eaters, happy eaters, all the ways in which we use food to cope, we're using food to not feel the thing we're feeling. Right? We learned that when we feel something, food makes it stop. And so when we have that strong habit loop, most of us don't even have connection to whatever is going on in the body because the food goes into our mouth so damn fast. that we've numbed it out. And so I believe starting with the emotional body and starting with the sensational body actually takes a lot of time. We actually start that on day one when you come into Hello Body Freedom. So this is why I'm saying that was a long-winded way to say starting with your thoughts is the best place to start. It really is. Because once you start to untangle and unwind the things you're thinking, the ways in which you are talking to yourself all day long, right? And for a lot of us, we wouldn't talk to our worst enemy the way that we talk to ourselves. This like constant barrage of drama, of just judge and beating ourselves up all day long. And let me tell you, if you had an actual human sitting here in your ear, like 18 hours a day, just going and going, I don't know about you, but I would definitely want to go eat to just like numb out. And that's what we do. And so, what we want to do is we want to start to get to know what are the things we're saying to ourselves, right? The think, feel, do cycle is real. If we are beating ourselves up all day long, then you can be damn guaranteed that you are feeling like shit. And if you are feeling like shit, who cares if you have another bowl of ice cream? Who cares, right? And so, this is a powerful place to go, wait a second, rewind. How can I catch these thoughts? First off, how can I catch them? I use the acronym CNN. So like you're a reporter. So you want to like CNN reporter. That's the thought. Just trying to make this shit up. I don't know. It helps me though, right? Because the idea is we don't want to be this judge or this critic. We ideally want to be a journalist and we just want to report, right? So CNN. The C is I got to catch my thoughts. I got to be the one to go, wait a second, what the hell am I saying to myself? And then you catch them. And then you start to learn, oh, are these thoughts helping me with the life I really want to live? Or are they pretty unhelpful? Which one are they helping or are they unhelpful? And what you will learn and what you will find out is we have a lot of unhelpful thoughts. If our thoughts create feelings and emotions inside of our body that also match that thought, then yeah, the actions are going to be equal. And so when we can catch our thoughts, that's the very first part for the C. The next one is neutralizing. So we want to catch the thoughts and then we want to neutralize it because what we normally do once we learn this is now we've made it wrong that we're having the shitty thoughts. Girlfriend, I don't know what to tell you, but you've been thinking shitty thoughts for a long ass time. You learned that from childhood. You learned that from family. You learned it from community, from culture. You learned it from church. You've learned it from all these different ways to shame yourself or to beat yourself down, right? You weren't born that way. This is handed to you. And we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are the same crazy thoughts that we've been thinking forever. We just haven't challenged those thoughts. So we're not going to make those thoughts wrong. We're not going to make ourselves wrong for having the crazy thoughts, but we're going to catch them and we're going to neutralize them by not making ourselves wrong to have them, but by recognizing them for what they are, just old thought patterns. And if they weren't ours to begin with, then damn it, you know what that means? That means we don't have to keep them. When we were kids, our brains were like total effing sponges. And so we just took everything in. That doesn't make it true. Just because we think it doesn't make it true. But what happens is if we stay unconscious with our thoughts, we just believe whatever the fuck we're thinking. It's like a real dangerous thing. If you are just like not managing what's going on in your thoughts, I use the analogy, it's like giving a 2-year-old a knife and just like letting them wander free unsupervised. There's literally nothing good. Like nothing good can, like really. That 2-year-old is not going to start carving a beautiful ice sculpture or like cutting an apple. No, nothing good comes from that. And I feel the exact same way if we are not checking what's going on in our thoughts on the regular. I don't know what to tell you. That's like giving a 2-year-old a knife and going, have fun. Hope it all turns out well. Y'all, it ain't going to turn out well. It's just not going to turn out. Okay. So we want to catch the thoughts. We want to neutralize, like literally, this is normal. We all have crazy thoughts, right? That doesn't mean I have to believe them. We want to catch them. We want to neutralize. And now we want to navigate someplace else. And here's what I mean by that. If these thoughts that you're having are clearly unhelpful, what would a more helpful thought be? What else could you think instead? And this is where I know I found it in myself when I first started doing this work. It was not easy for me to figure out different ways to get to the other side. to come up with these helpful thoughts. This is where being in presence of people who have been through this, been there, done there, got their t-shirt, where we can help you, where I can, yes, let's get you out of this. This is what we do at Hello Body Freedom, right? It's let me workshop with you. What else could you think? Let me give you a whole bunch of different ideas, right? And the idea here is that we don't want to think a thought that's so outlandish that you can't even believe it, but we're really looking for helpful thoughts that are believable. Okay, well, I can tell I have these shitty thoughts going on, but you know what? At least I'm working on it. I'm moving in the right direction. I'm learning how to catch my thoughts. I'm learning how to not beat myself anymore. This is a big deal. Feel the difference between what I just said versus this is the worst day I've ever had. I hate my life. This isn't working for me. Both have a totally different energy. Both will have a completely different emotion, feeling, sensation in the body attached to it. And both will have completely different action outcomes. This really matters. Now, the way that we're gonna work with our thoughts, if it's body based, where that you don't feel like you even had a thought. You're just walking through your day, then all of a sudden you're having like a panic attack, or you're having pain in the body, or this anxiety pops up. You don't even know where it came from. And the idea is that one is you're catching your thoughts. And then this other route that we're talking about is you are now recognizing that it's like something just took over your body, right? Which can happen. And so if that happens, the next step is what am I making this mean? What am I saying to myself about this experience that I'm having with my body? Because you definitely have a story about it. You have words that you say to yourself. If you're dealing with this PTSD, if you're dealing with this like body based, just popping up out of nowhere, you're like, oh, here it is again. That's a story. Oh, here it is again. I'm used to this. Let's go. So you want to then again catch your thoughts. And I'm going to say it. I know I feel like I'm saying this at nauseum, but I feel like it's a very important point to make. Starting with your thoughts is the fast way to start to get some good wins. When you can change your thoughts, they change how you feel in your body and they can change your actions. And I'm going to give you an example that I heard a long time ago, like on some audio book. I wish I could remember, but it was a beautiful example. And it was you're having like the worst day ever, and you had this horrible day at work, and you're feeling icky, and you get home and you get in an argument with your partner, and it's just, you were just like down and out, and you're not feeling good, and then all of a sudden the phone rings and you pick up the phone and it's, I don't know, like the lottery or publishers clearinghouse or whatever. And somebody on the other side literally goes, no, remember that thing you signed up for 3 months ago? You won. You literally won. You won $3 million. And in that moment, because you now have a belief and a thought in your head that you just won $3 million, even though you're feeling horrible and having a shit day, how do you think you're going to feel in that moment? Or let's say $20 million, whatever, like whatever the number is that's going to make you lose your shit. You won $100 million, right? Tax free. That was funny. So what do you think you're going to feel? Like, and I remember in this audiobook, they're like, the feeling of elation when you like your whole life is going to change, right? So you got to pick a number that's like your whole life is going to change. And all of a sudden, you can tell everything inside of your body. You feel light, you feel energized, your heart's just pounding, you're smiling, you're laughing, you're all these things. And it is a beautiful example of what we think immediately changes how we feel. Okay. So even if it's a bottom up situation where it's a body based thing, what we are making it mean, the thoughts that we are having, when we can start to change that, when we can CNN be the best investigator ever, when we can catch our thoughts and go, oop, I'm doing it. I can totally tell these are unhelpful thoughts, right? And then we neutralize it. We don't make it wrong. We don't make ourselves bad. We don't start to shame ourselves. It's normal. We've been doing this for a long time. We have 60,000 thoughts a day that are random and they loop, and it just is what it is. Okay. But we get to navigate away from that. We actually get to bring our consciousness. What makes us uniquely human and amazing is our prefrontal cortex. So that way we can knock this out of the park and go, what do I actually want to think instead? And how can I recognize in this moment with these new, amazing, empowered thoughts? Oh my God, I'm feeling better. And remember, the way that we feel emotions and sensations almost always dictate the action or inaction that we do or don't do. And this is what builds, like, it is this present moment solution that changes your future. It changes the trajectory of your life, not sitting in the past. Why did this happen to me? Why this is why I'm so struggling. This is why my life sucks. This is why my body can't lose weight. This is why all of this stuff. Why did I do this? That's bullshit. It's not, oh, this person, if this person just wouldn't do this for me, I know everything would be okay. I'm telling you, when you keep your little self, your focus inside of your hula hoop, magic can happen. And I do believe that for a lot of us, I know for me, I needed help. I really needed help getting to the other side. I need somebody to hold my damn hand. And I'm so glad I did. And so for those of you, if you haven't taken the challenge yet, get in there. Hello Body Freedom, take that. It's free. And we have support inside of the challenge. We have myself and Jamie is also in there. She's our challenge mentor. So I'm really excited to have her. So you guys can jump in there, knock that out of the park. And that's what I have for you today. I hope you've learned something. I hope that you can see that there are ways for you to get out of your own way, but it really must start with the basic tenets of the things that you can control and keeping your focus and attention there and working there diligently, day after day, time and time again, getting the support you need, which is a very different path than I'm going to focus on this thing outside of me as the excuse as to why I can't reach my goals. Okay. All right, my friends. Till next time. See you later.